Well, hello and welcome to Russ Danks, who is Marketing and Strategy Director for Punch Pubs & Co. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Hospitality Talks, Russ. For anybody out there who doesn't know you, and I very much doubt there's anyone out there that doesn't know Punch, do you want to just give us a bit of a rundown of who you are and who Punch are?
Well, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Katie. Always good to spend time with you. I think, Punch Pubs & Co is roughly 1,200 pubs across the UK. So right from, all across the country, including Scotland and Wales as well. We've got a mixture of pubs, very much local pubs, so very much centred in people's communities. Up and down the country, and they range everything from your good old pubby pub, your good old boozer, right through to kind of good to command restaurants. So really kind of broad mix. Some of those we run ourselves in our management partnerships division, about 220 of those, and the rest in the leasing sector. So pretty broad across the piece. And I've been at Punch for about 2 years now, and it's on a real transformational journey. And it's really good to be in the business. Probably not so much now at the moment because it's a tough time, but certainly the world of pubs, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when the hospitality industry is challenging, it's still thrilling to be in. So that's positive. So tell me, Russ, marketing over the last 6 months. I mean, what have you done? What on earth does a predominantly tenanted and leased pub company do with regards to marketing and supporting possibly their licensees through marketing during a global pandemic?
It's been a fascinating and relentless journey, and it continues on. I mean, we are literally probably right in the midst of another piece going forward. But I think, kind of certainly looking backwards, I think kind of really getting to the point where, from our publicans' perspective, it's, kind of really reassuring them and about what's going to happen next. It's kind of really taking things into quite a piecemeal approach so that they can kind of build a plan around that. And certainly for our consumers, probably the most difficult time really is the fact that normally our customers are pretty predictable, right? Most customers in most markets are pretty predictable. We love to think they change lots, and marketers make lots of money out of thinking of that. But the reality is that the markets pretty much are quite stagnant, and they move slightly every year on different trends. But for the first time, we really had to get back and understand what our customers are thinking. So certainly when people were getting back into pubs, the supermarkets were talking about being safe and secure, and talking about the fact that these were dangerous places to go and actually needed to make sure you didn't bring your family. And of course, we then tried to open a lot of pubs under that banner of this is safe, but it's also going to be different. And so we took very much the approach of pubs should be very much centered in a really warm and welcoming experience, and they just happen to be on top of that having some extra safety precautions. And so certainly for most of for all the Punch business and all the Punch publicans, we very much kind of helped them and supported them on understanding that open your doors, a warm and safe welcome. I mean, we have a tagline which we always use now, which is always welcoming, always safe. And that's very much the case. And we kept you safe before the pandemic, and we'll keep you safe during it, and we'll keep you safe afterwards as well.
And that's a really good point to remember, is that with pubs, it's not just about being safe. It is about having that warm welcome. Hospitality. The clue's in the name, so to speak. How much has your marketing message changed from being hospitable to being safe? What kind of percentage was it before the pandemic, and what kind of percentages do you look at now?
Well, I think during the pandemic, we run community pubs, and so very much about being at the centre of your community. And of course, that's moved and morphed across the years, but certainly has never been more apparent than during the pandemic. So we got a pub in the Spread Eagle in Bolton, who we immediately opened, 120 pub shops with breaks. And overnight, we'd gone from selling beer to selling 16-kilo bags of flour and yeast, and supporting local food banks. And of course, all these pubs did these things anyway. They've just been brought right to the fore, and I think people really got a real good connection with their local pub. And so, really, what we wanted to do during the pandemic and then after, and kind of once we reopened, is really kind of keep hold of that sense of community. And actually, that's one of the things we've definitely found is, we've got a newfound consumer base that probably haven't been to their local for some time. And then all of a sudden, they're working from home, they've been exploring the local area once they've been out and about. And this is a really good opportunity for them to not only connect with the pub, and bear in mind that the pub has always been the original social network, but actually I've managed to find people that are like-minded and going through the same thing as me in the local same area. So I think what we try to do is keep hold of that. And to answer your question around how much of that is around a pivot to the message, I think the always safe piece is underlying. And at the beginning, it was probably 50 or 60% of the messaging. And now it's about 30, 25, 30%. Because I think that's just, people come to expect that that's what you do, right? Yeah. And the cues, let's face it, aren't in the marketing. The cues are in the doing. So, when I arrive, your sanitizer's full, that actually someone is telling me what to do, and that I can check in on the app, and someone is telling me what they're going to do to keep me safe, and that someone is cleaning down the tables before I sit there. So the marketing actually is only worth maybe 5% of that messaging. And I think your own research has said the same thing, certainly what I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Messaging is absolutely no good if the execution is no good. So, okay, interesting. And you mentioned just now about people sort of working from home. I personally think that this is a massive opportunity for pubs. I think that there's such an opportunity to create interesting, quiet workspaces for people who don't want kids running around their feet or don't want to be spending 24 hours a day with their husband. And want to actually get out and be out there, with other people buzzing around them whilst they're working, etc. How does marketing help pubs? What are the marketing messages that pubs need to be giving out in order to capitalize on those consumers?
I think you have to be explicit. I think before, we've not given people permission to work from the pub, so to speak. So actually, I hate saying this because I'm going to give away my secrets, but certainly in the next kind of week or two, pubs will be kind of launching this work from the pub kind of setting with this view of, let's face it, we've got all of the great ingredients. We can zone the pub fairly well. We've got power, we've got Wi-Fi, we've got coffee, we've got great hospitality, we've got food, and you can have a beer at lunch with your work. I mean, this is brilliant. I mean, this is what people have been asking for years. So I think the key thing here is, where people, I give you an example, the Wellington and Boreham Wood, operated by two great publicans, Sean and Neil. People in Boreham Wood would usually commute into London, and they would be used to kind of WeWork spaces or the office group spaces. And it's not home, but it's not work. It's this kind of social work space where people, like you say, have just created this buzz and this atmosphere that makes me more productive. And so if we can emulate some of that in some of our local communities, I think it's a massive, massive winner. And of course, the secret here is you're not going to make a load of money out of people being sat there drinking coffee all day. But the secret is, of course, is the fact that they then stay later, or they eat with you, or they drink with you. So, don't use this as a view of, well, I'm not going to make any money out of it. No, you might only make a little bit. You'll certainly pay your costs. But the kind of secret thing here is the fact that you build a beautiful relationship with the pub, but also you get them to stay for food and drink later on the day, or maybe come back later on with their partner, etc.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's totally the right way to look at it. We ran some research, it's about 5 years ago now, where we asked people whether they would rather work from a coffee shop or a pub, and only 33% of those people said a pub, and the rest, it was all coffee shop. Now, I'm going to be really interested to see as this year goes on. In fact, I might actually speak to the team here and let's see if we can rerun that research, because I think it'll be really interesting to see where the pubs have kind of, because of all the community work they've been doing, because of the fact that they are so incredibly safe and people do feel looked after in them, whether that figure of 33% would increase. I would really hope to see it increase. So I'll let you know when we get to that.
The one thing I'd say is kind of my observation, in the good old research term of kind of ethnographic, where you're actually going out and viewing consumers in their natural habitat. If you've seen anyone trying to do a Zoom call in a Costa Coffee, it's pretty terrible. And all you can hear is go, "Can you hear me? Can you see me? Oh, I'm going. And I think actually the world of the pubs, 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning, it's generally a little bit more subdued. And so I think, trying to capture that moment with actually, kind of providing a good environment for people to work in, I think actually is a really good opportunity. So I think, yeah, it's a fascinating experiment, and we'll see where we go.
Good. Well, I wish you the best of luck with it, because I think it's fantastic. And just before I let you go, I'm just trying to gather some thoughts on Christmas. What do we think Christmas is going to look like this year? And from a marketeer's perspective, wow, that's a minefield. Especially with the rule of six still in place. And, there are obviously going to be various different localized lockdowns, hopefully not a full one. What does Christmas look like for 2020?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating and fast-moving debate and discussion that will continue to move right up until December. I mean, no one really knows on Christmas Day what's going to happen. Can you have 6 people? Can you have 4 people? Do you have people from a single household? Lots and lots of questions. But the one thing I always say to my team is there's probably 3 things to the recipe. One is the fact that actually people will still want to get together at Christmas, right? That is a fact. People will still want to go out. People will still want to enjoy themselves. And do you know what? I can guarantee it that 99% of the country will still have turkey this year. Yeah. But the key thing here, of course, is the fact that things will change and alter slightly. So for a supermarket, for example, the likelihood of people buying smaller turkeys this year is going to be really big, versus bigger turkeys. So if you were a forecaster or a buyer in supermarkets, that's definitely something I think about. Now, of course, a lot of pubs, what we are doing at the moment is we're actually pulsing our customers for kind of feedback at the moment on a regular basis. So 250 customers every week. We poll their data on understanding kind of their perception around Christmas. We've got one going out at the moment about, probably the biggest one I want to answer at the moment is not necessarily about Christmas Day, but more about work parties, because you're not at work for a lot of people, if they're in an office job, and they're in this fragmented approach. So normally when we'd host Christmas parties from kind of mid-November right through to kind of New Year's Eve, that time, what are people going to be doing? Is it smaller work gatherings? Is it just your team? Is it your immediate team? It might be for pubs that you go out more often. The fact that actually you want to catch up with so many people that actually you've got to do that through lots of different groups. So I think, again, what we've got to do is we've got to remain quite agile all the way through this process to try and understand what the market is doing. A lot of that is being governed by what the government is saying. And then the second thing is kind of really applying some really good, just clever marketing tactics on making sure that the consumer understands that. So, Christmas is a perfect example. If you've only got tables of 6 and you've got to do that in a social setting, actually do you do 3 Christmas sittings, maximize the opportunity versus 2? And, do you try and extend it out so that Christmas Day is also Boxing Day? Now, if any of you have got extended families, you all know that you have a second Christmas Day on Boxing Day because you have to go to your in-laws that you hate or, love.
Not this year, Russ, I'm going away.
Of course, the pub might be the perfect opportunity to do that on. So this year we have to, I think that we've got to remember that people will still want to celebrate Christmas. They still will. And that won't change. What it will happen, though, is that ultimately those things will adapt and modify, and actually we've got to prepare for that as much as possible. But I can't guarantee you that those things won't change between now and December in terms of actually how you have to adapt.
Thank you so much, Russ. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, and really great to get your insight into the pub world. I think you're absolutely correct that creating spaces for people to work and looking at how you can capitalize on stretching Christmas out and in whatever way, shape or form you do. I think you're absolutely right. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to having a gin and tonic at a socially distanced venue very, very soon with you.
That's inevitable. Thanks, Katie.